Welcome to Lunch and Learn here, Friday, August 22nd. Um, Talk a little bit about navigating the highs and lows of final expense sales, mindset strategies and practical tips, which such a vague title could include anything really, but the highs and lows of final expense sales, that's really kind of the whole ball game in terms of on a daily basis. That's the biggest challenge is, if everything was easy and steady and consistent, then, well, everybody would be doing this because it would be easy and it would be predictable. But that's not the reality. So what we'll talk through today, and we can go any direction if you want to put things in the chat as we go along. You take minor detours if you'd like. Do some overall mindset thoughts, number one, some financial thoughts, number two, and then some practical things of how should I do this? How should I do that? And just a bunch of miscellaneous things there. So let me get I always never have the chat displaying. There we go. Mindset. Mindset when you're working in this business, whether it's final expense, life insurance, sales, or term, or any type of sales, really, your mindset's really based on what you're expecting things to be like. So what I've found is if you just go ahead and expect that this business is going to be 10 times harder than you think, then when the challenges come and the curveballs come, then, well, hey, I told myself this is going to be harder than I think. So generally speaking, just not going into things thinking it's going to be smooth, it's going to be easy. Anticipate challenges that you can't even imagine. Then when they come, you're not surprised by them. So number one mindset, it's going to be 10 times harder than you think. There's always something new that you don't see coming around the curve. So remember, when the challenges come, and it's such a simple thought, but when the challenges come, at least for me, you right away you go into negativity. This person canceled, huge chargeback. I thought it was a for sure sale. Can't get anybody to pick up all week long. Negativity, because that's what every single phone call you're being faced with negativity. People who don't want to talk to you, who don't want to buy, who aren't serious, who don't keep their word, who don't show up there for their appointments. It's constant negativity. So, but you have to tell yourself, positivity is the only way forward. If you dwell on the negative, you're not going to make progress in the business. So very simple thing. We all know it, but you have to keep that in your head. The old quote, success is going from failure to failure without losing enthusiasm. And easier said than done, but that's what's required. When it's good, I always say, when it's good, ride the wave, because there's stretches in the final expense business where, for whatever reason, people want to buy, and it usually comes in bunches, or one after another. So when it's good, keep taking calls, keep making calls, because what you don't realize, the reason why the sales keep coming is because your internal confidence is at such a high level that when you talk with people sense that, and then you're not internally desperate, and they sense that as well, and so they're more likely to buy. And it's just it's a momentum type thing, which we'll talk about. But when it's good, ride the wave, and when it's bad, don't panic. Don't panic. I saw this quote earlier. Your tolerance for boredom determines your capacity for success, and I think that's relevant to this business too, because most of the time, it's really boring. The business is boring. It's trying to get a hold of people, trying to make contact, working through 94% no's for the 6% yeses, or the 4% yeses, whatever it may be on a given week. So your tolerance for boredom determines your capacity for success. If you give up when you're bored, or when it seems hopeless, then you're not going to get to the point where you want to be. So life insurance, I always say, is a momentum business. It's a momentum business. Sometimes you're stuck still and you just can't get anything going. And then you make that first sale, and then you make the second sale, and then just out of nowhere, it seems like all these sales occur. In June of this year, just a couple months ago, I took the first week off. I stopped my leads from coming, which I knew I hated doing because I knew that would stop my momentum. At the same time, I didn't want to pay in the way I had them set up. So I stopped my leads, went on a short vacation with the family, came back, and I had lost all momentum. I just could not make a sale. That was the first week of June. Second week of June, hardly anything. Third week of June, hardly anything. Same activity, same effort. But towards, it was like 3 days left in the month, I had made a total of like $2,000 in advanced profit for the entire month. And I'm going like, what have I done? I've lost all momentum. I don't know what's going on. And then within literally 24 hours, I had like $12,000 in profit, sale after sale, three or four big sales, and then a few small ones, just out of nowhere. One was a referral. One was from 2 weeks back where I had, nurtured and followed up, but the lady just didn't come through. And then she finally came through, and the whole month turned around in 24 hours. I mean, it's just, it's nuts. And, after that, you say to yourself, well, I wish I would have just worked 24 hours all month. But it doesn't work that way because it's your whole months of effort, which has led to that 24 hours, which is unpredictable. So anyway, it's a momentum business. So especially if you're new, I don't know how many people are new looking at the list here, but if you're kind of newer to the business, I always wonder, especially when I got started, it's like, what's the difference between failing and succeeding? Why do some people succeed? Why do some people fail? And I used to, tell, when I was doing the RSD coaching thing, sometimes I shied away from, kind of getting on people and being like, hey, you got to have some more urgency. You got to move faster. You got to do things quicker. I think, everybody works at a different pace. And then it was Jeff, he did one of his YouTube videos and he talked about urgency, and it hit me. It's like, that's true. That's the difference between succeeding and failing, is your sense of urgency. So especially when you get started, because usually the people who fail out or don't have as much success, they're sitting back, and when something bad happen, they take a day off, or they're not putting in the consistent activity, which you hear over and over and over, but it's true. But it's a sense of urgency. Like we've got to figure things out, and we have to get things done right now, or take the next best step anyway. So the urgency, I think, is huge. Now the challenge is, it's not just frenetic urgency all the time. The hard part about urgency is that you have to have urgency without anxiety. You have to have urgency with patience. You have to have urgency with wisdom. And that's the hard part, because it's not just about, when things aren't going your way, it's not just, I'm just going to dial, 100 more dials right now and blast through these things, because that may not be the most productive thing to do if you've already dialed them 3 other times today. Okay, because you're gonna, there's a point to where you can only call a lead so many times, or if for whatever reason your lead source is slow or the leads aren't coming in, sometimes the best thing to do is to take a break, and that's urgency with wisdom, or knowing not to jump from lead source to lead source and throw money away. Give your leads a chance to, or develop yourself on how to best work the lead, rather than trying to work 8 different leads and throwing away money. So urgency without anxiety, that's tough. Urgency with patience, urgency with wisdom. Above all, it's always comes down to the same things: consistent attitude, consistent activity. So you got to have them. If you have a consistent attitude, consistent activity, you're fine. You can't really control the results. Those are the only 2 things you can control. So that's your roadmap. I always say, be the Scotty Scheffler of life insurance sales. I would love to be the Scotty Scheffler of life insurance sales, because that guy, I don't know if you're watching, if you watch golf at all, but the guy is incredibly consistent and level-headed, and he doesn't let his highs be too high or his lows be too low. He wins a tournament every week, and he's just so nonchalant about it. And he's just like, yep, well, I played all right, and it turned out okay, and moves on to the next week and wins again. He's about to win the win another one this weekend. I will go ahead and predict. But consistency, and sometimes, again, mindset is sometimes, a lot of the times in this business, it just seems impossible. It seems absolutely impossible. But again, it comes down to that sense of urgency and resolve. I think of the original Mission Impossible, 1996, when Ethan Hunt describes the big plan to go in and steal the knock list. If you're tracking with me here, and Luther, his partner, says, "And you think we're actually going to do this?" And of course, he says, "We're going to do this," with a sense of determination. And that's the same type of mindset you have to have to push through the tough times. So anyway, just some big picture mindset things there. Hopefully that's helpful. And then we'll move into a little more nitty gritty here. Some financial thoughts, which ties to the mindset. And your financial stress in this business is different depending on what your obligations are. So if your spouse is working also, then maybe you don't have to make as much each month. Maybe it's more of a part-time thing. Maybe you're the sole provider for your family and you have to make X amount of money, and or you don't eat, or you don't pay the mortgage. So that, you have a higher financial stress in that sense. But the challenge to, final expense sales, of course, is that every month is a fresh start. Every month you essentially start at zero, or depending on whatever way your time period you're counting or calculating. So like my wife always at the end of a month will be like, hey, you excited for a new month? I always look at her, I'm like, no, not really, because I don't like starting at zero. I like being at the end of the month where I know the numbers are good. So every month is a fresh start. Every month you start at zero, which is what produces naturally stress, financial stress. And just a thought, financial stress will not alleviate from you in this business until you start stacking commissions, as Nick West always said. You got to stack commissions. In other words, you got to stack those profits while things are good, while you're riding the wave of success, so that when you have a terrible month the next month, it's no big deal because you had a terrific month the month before. So it all evens out. Okay, so over the course of 12 months, you're not going to have the same exact income at all. Now, I'm always striving to get my Scotty Shuffler income, my consistent level income, but you just can't control that. So you're going to have super high months, super low months. You're going to have months where you have to get a ton of deposits, and you're like, where is this coming from? And then you're going to have a month where a bunch of cancellations and chargebacks all come at once, and that subtracts from your income, and it's like, why am I not getting paid anything? But ultimately, financial stress will not start to alleviate until you start stacking commissions. So you got to kind of, gamify it and say, how many months of expenses can you stack? Can you cover, so that it's just a margin of comfort, if you will. So you've got to kind of shoot and plan your goals based on that. And if you do that, and if you're consistent and you write business every day and you put in the effort every single day, it will get easier. It will get easier. You'll get deposits, and you're like, wow, where is this coming from? It's coming from business you wrote 10 months ago, but you don't even remember. I say Sika in particular, when Sika first came out, I wrote a ton of Sika business, and I didn't like it at all. I didn't like writing it because it felt like I would just submit the application, it would just kind of go into outer space, and I'd never get paid for it because of their odd payment, which they changed a little bit. But anyway, they hardly paid anything up front. But in the past, 6 to 8 months, consistently, I'll get these huge Sika deposits out of nowhere, and I don't even know what business it was for, but it ends up really helping each month or saving the month. So the more you write, the more you get the kind of the residual, and the renewals play a small role into that too. But the more you write, it does get easier when you just get those deposits. And like I said, especially I always say, if you're in your first year of life insurance sales, it's about survival. Yes, obviously you want to thrive and your goal is to thrive, but you have to survive first before you thrive. So if you're not seeing the results you want in the first months or even year or even year and a half, just know it gets easier. It's first year is about survival. So remember, in the first year, you're only getting that 75% advance of everything you write. And then if you're writing GI, then you're getting less. So it takes a while for things to kind of accumulate and get paid more. So anyway, those are some financial thoughts. Those are things I always kind of wondered about, big picture, and thought about. So I don't know if that resonates with anyone, but financial thoughts there. And then last part here, how should I? Just a bunch of miscellaneous things I thought, things that I'm thinking through when I'm calling people or trying to figure out most effective communication. How should I engage people at the start of an outbound call? If you go through a period where people aren't picking up or they're hanging up on you, you start to wonder, like, am I approaching this wrong? Should I be saying something different? And the biggest thing is, regardless of how you start the call, I have found being relaxed and confident, that's what's communicated the most to the person who answers the phone. So if you are like on the edge of your seat and you're just nervous, like, oh, I don't want them to hang up on me, I don't want them to hang up on me again, then that's going to come across in your tone. And the other thing is you can't win until you're not afraid to lose, type of thing. So you've got to call someone on an outbound call and say that first line that you're going to say without being afraid of them hanging up or being them offended. Because, if they filled out the form, if they really are interested in it, they're not going to hang up on you for the most part. Sometimes they hang up, you call back, and they're a new person, but you can't be tiptoeing around people. So what do I do? I don't do anything. And I wonder if I should do something different. I don't know, but I basically say, yeah, hi, Jim. Yeah, this is Benjamin with Trusted Life Quote. Looks like you filled out a form on Facebook about final expense life insurance. You put sewing as your favorite hobby and children as your beneficiary. Just kind of pause. Were you just looking for options for yourself, or how can we help you specifically? And then just let them talk. So it doesn't work with everybody, but it's basically, when people answer the phone, they want to know who's calling. And I'm not into the, hey, this is Benjamin in this final expense department. Well, final expense department of what company? I mean, I get those calls all the time. Hey, this is in the Jim or Nancy in the business loan department. And I'm like, okay, so you don't want to tell me your company name. So I just be upfront and straightforward. And where you're looking for options for yourself, or how can we help you? It's just kind of like, hey, you filled it out, what can we do? So there's different ways to approach it. Obviously, you may have your own way, but that's essentially what I do. And as you can kind of sense based on the silence or the not silence from people, on sometimes you just want to pause more, because sometimes they'll say something. But yeah, you just got to kind of feel people out for the most part and be relaxed and confident. How should I engage people by text? So a new lead is submitted. What text do you want going out right away? And there's kind of a traditional way that I've been using and still am using for the most part, where it says, hey, you filled out a form, you put down hobby and this is your date of birth, is that correct? Get them to engage by confirming. You're just basically getting them to engage and saying, yes, I did that. And then, hey, a few eligibility questions. And then, hey, you should have some good options. Would you like Benjamin to call now or book an appointment? That's kind of the traditional way. I find it works. But just in this last week, actually, I've been experimenting with just a more direct, because really 99% of the time, what people want is price, and they just want price. And then when they see your nicely worded intro text, they tune it out because they filled out 5 other forms and they're getting the same intro text. So here's what I've been trying literally just in the past few days, and it seems to be working for some people here. Just straight up, what information do you need from us? Pricing or other information? A or B. Then they can respond A or B. And now you got them. Now you're engaged with them. And then rather than saying, now to figure out pricing, I have to ask you some help. No, that's going to be resistance. They don't want anything to do with that. If you make it hard for them, they will go away. So you get ahead of it. You say, sure, were you looking for a ballpark estimate or exact price, a price guaranteed to be the lowest in the state? Okay, so now it's they're determining what we have to do here. If they want a ballpark estimate, okay, go ahead, give them a ballpark estimate, quote a Mutual of Omaha for their age. And then once you talk, you can figure out if they're even eligible for it or not. But if that's what they want, give it to them. If they want, most people want an exact price guaranteed to be the lowest in the state. So then, well, what that means is, okay, let's educate you a little bit. Okay, so exact pricing is based on 3 things: age, 65, gender, male. You have this information already. You're not asking them to do anything. It's like, we have this. And then number 3, health history, unknown, ... We can knock out the health history in a quick 2-minute phone call or continue by text. Which do you prefer? So now there's no friction at all. So you're not saying we need to have a call. People don't want to call. But if you put it you remember, they're making the decisions here. They said they want the exact price. Well, if they want the exact price, we need these 3 things. So how are we going to do it? Are we going to knock it out in a phone call, or are we going to continue by text? Because some people are not going to aren't going to do a phone call until they're confident that they want to move forward. So put the ball in their court. And if they say text, I don't like doing that, but you got to do it, and then you work them to a phone call eventually. Or you quickly figure out if they're not serious or not a good candidate. But this approach I've been using, feel free to use that, or just help your thinking on being more direct. Because some people like to chat and like the very polite approach. Other people, again, they're on the go. A lot of people that I get are working, and they don't have time for this. There's that. Number 2, how should I close the sale? Very generally. You close the sale from the start of the call. It's not, one magic line at the end, but this is nothing new. You got to draw out the need. You got to figure out why this person needs it. If there's not a legitimate or real need, they're not going to buy. If they buy, they're not going to keep it. Speak their language. I would say circle the airport at the end when you've quoted, and they know the price, and if they want it, some people, they want to make a decision, but they genuinely need some time, or they need you to help them think through it. So there's no problem and there's a big benefit to just circle the airport before you try to land the plane and say, okay, well, let's move into the application. Essentially, you're going over the details again. This is from an A-rated carrier. Terrific carrier. Again, the 10,000 would be this amount. That'd be a great amount for cremation, because that'll certainly cover that plus a little extra, probably. Reassure them that it's a good amount of coverage. And you can always add coverage later on, because a lot of times people don't make a decision because they want to make just the right, I want to get the amount that I want right now. They don't really think, hey, I can add coverage later. So you kind of assure them of all those kind of objections that they're silently going on in their head. And then you're assuming the whole time, assumption that we're going to do this. My oldest daughter is an expert at assuming things, because she'll ask me, hey, Dad, can we go to the pool? And I go, I don't know, not right now. Okay, when? So it's not, or can I have this, or can I have that, or can I have a treat? Can I have some food? Well, not right now. Well, okay, but when? And she has no doubt in her mind. She's assuming we're gonna get a treat. We're gonna go to the pool. It's just a matter of when. And there's no shame, and she's not trying to be tiptoe around it. Like, okay, well, okay, what do you mean you need to think about it? It's, well, when are we gonna do it? Genuine, sincere, not pushy, just assuming. So assumption goes into it big time in terms of closing. How do you close more sales? How do you get that extra 2, 3, or 4 sales a month, which is going to make a huge difference? One simple thing is you got to answer your phone when it rings. A lot of times they'll call you at the weirdest times, and if you don't answer the phone, you'll never get them back on the line. So if you want to close 2, 3, 4 more sales a month, be available. With most of these people, you've got one shot. So you got one opportunity. So you have to make the most of every, and consistent effort of being available as best as you can will lead to closing more sales. And then just practically touch them at every point in the day. Call in the morning, call in the afternoon, call in the evening. Some people work, some people sleep in. Everybody has a different schedule. So make sure you're touching them. If you're I get set in my own rhythm where I wake up, I call at a certain time, and my second round of calls is at a certain time, my third round of calls is at a certain time, because it's convenient for me. But sometimes I have to think, hey, I'm not having a good contact rate right now. What do I need to do? I need to go call in the evening, or the evening Eastern time, Central time, whatever it may be, to try to reach them, catch them at a different time. Especially if you're 60 or below. If they're still working, sometimes the evening is when you can catch them at a perfect time. How should I make sure clients are happy and keep their policy? I did this the other week here. I personally use my own service, mailmyfinalexpenseclient.com, with approval packets. I get something in their hand as soon as possible. I want that to be an extension of my communication, extension of me personally being there. Like if I were sitting in their living room, I want them to look through those materials and say, like they're talking with me, reading about me, going over the policy we discussed, reading the frequently asked questions, so that they can review it and on their own time. Because I can't do follow-up calls for every single call I make, saying, hey, just going over all the details one more time. Ideally, if you had an assistant to do that, or if you had more time in the day, that would help, solidify things probably. But I'm big on that. How should I set appointments? Love-hate relationship here. I always say, when to set appointments, when you want to be disappointed, when you want to waste time, when you want to not make sales, when you want to be demoralized, which is true most of the time. Most of the time, they will not answer. They will forget who you are. They will have signed up with another agent by then. So I really, truly hate appointments, but at the end of the day, if you're working a high volume of outbound leads in particular, inbound obviously not, although follow-up appointments is a decision to make. But outbound, you have no choice. You have to allow it, because people are legitimately busy. And if they're engaging with you at that time, well, yes, you have to say, we're going to do this later in some manner. So, but think of appointments differently, as treat it as just a sign of intent. If they truly cannot talk now, what I do sometimes is call them anyway after they set an appointment. So if they answer, it's like, oh, you just treat it like the appointment was never set. And a lot of times you can go ahead and have the appointment early, and they don't even realize they set the appointment, or they just realize, oh, I actually am free. Because these people, for the most part, they don't keep the appointments. They don't write things down on a schedule. And then if they do schedule it, even if they're going to get cold feet right before it, because they're not going to feel like talking to some salesperson, even though they set the appointment 5 minutes before, and they're going to chicken out. So call them anyway after they set an appointment. And if they say, oh, I already set an appointment, well, now hey, this person is actually on top of it, and she might actually answer at the time we set the appointment. So now you just continue as if no appointment was set. So on my calendar, I just looked at the last 2 weeks just as an example. I was thinking this would be actually worse. I was actually pleasantly surprised. So in the last 2 weeks on my calendar, I put, after every appointment, I put an X for no shows, a check mark if they answered but no sale, and then a plus if they showed and sold. So 41 total appointments were set, 26 didn't show up, 63%. 11 I talked to, but there was no sale, and then 4 I talked to and there's actually a sale, 9.7% closing. Not bad, all things considered. So again, just know the reality of it. You're going to have 63% of your, at least, I think that was maybe a good stretch, but most people in the final expense appointment world do not follow through. Do I have time on, when do you want to end? Do we want to end here at 12:30, 12:45, or how much time do we have here?
I
You
think
can
you
put
can
it in there.
keep going, Ben, if you have more you want
Okay.
to talk to. If anybody, we're recording the
Okay.
call, so
Okay.
if anybody needs to hop off, they can. But if you have stuff you want to continue to talk about, I would keep going.
Okay. Yeah, I'm almost done here. Just want to make sure I'm not going over. How should I pay off chargebacks? This is a practical thing, but I'd say pay them off right away. I if when you think, oh, I might have other business come to cover it, and if in a few days it's going to cover it, fine, that's fine. But paying off chargebacks right away just reduces this mental load on you that you can't feel. So one time I had uh, a huge chargeback due to some billing issues from a carrier, and I put it off, and I said I'm just going to write business to cover it instead, and it weighed on me, and I realized over the course of a month I was in this drought because I was writing from a sense of, oh, I have a debt, and if you clear that from your head, it helps you really increase your confidence, at least for me anyway. So that mental weight will affect you. If you have chargebacks, no matter how big or small, just pay them off, so you have a clean slate. How should I choose the right carrier? Have you ever been in that position? You choose the wrong carrier for whatever reason, then you're all the way into the application. You're like, oh boy, there's all sorts of problems. We're not going to get this done. I hate that feeling. So, how do you choose the right carrier? I use this. I've shared this before. I just generally speaking, I want to have one primary carrier as much as I can. So in this case, I'm an American amicable person in terms of best customer service, best back end, everything. Not the best rates, but best process, best underwriting. So that's where I'm going if at all possible. If someone is perfect health and I'm really trying to beat a price or something, Mutual of Omaha. If they're using a card, Transamerica or combined. And then below that, Aflac and Aetna are kind of back in the mix here, particularly with Aflac because they're a lower rate, even though it's the same product as Aetna. So I'm using them a lot more. And then for more complex health issues, depending on what it is, Royal Neighbors usually is a little bit more lenient. So I'll use them as a third, although again, Royal Neighbors with their customer service and their call issues, it's tough to. I just have a little dread in my stomach when I think about having to do anything customer service wise with Royal Neighbors right now. Below that, Sika, not as much anymore because their underwriting is a little tighter and unpredictable. And then for guaranteed issue or graded, Gerber Combined or Guaranteed Trust Life are all good options depending on price and particular health issue. But that's just the way I kind of make my decision on which carrier I go with. Always want a solid AMAM sale. That is solid. You know exactly how you can service the policy, when you're going to get paid. Everything is just good about American Amicable from my perspective. No more SBLI. No, I'm underwriting is unpredictable. They ask for driver's license. They've had identity issues. I just can't do it. I will if it fits, but I just find more trouble than help. Tim says, great. Do you send a text the moment a new lead comes in automatically through the CRM, or do you wait until after the first call attempt? Are you sending your text out manually? I assume that if you're including their hobby and or beneficiary, do you still leave voicemails? Yeah, as soon as the lead comes in, I have the automatic text go out. I will engage manually on certain conversations. I leave a voicemail on the first call attempt. Sometimes the second call attempt, I'm not consistent on that. But yeah, generally, voicemails are not responded to, but I want to do at least one. Transamerica, yes, Transamerica Express. I do not do immediate solution at all. Immediate solution is a mess. Trans Express is still a mess, but at least the application process is easy. How should I get leads that want to buy? That's the question. How do you get leads that actually want to buy? In one sense, selling is not the hard part. It's really marketing plus having a good connection rate plus standing out to a saturated, crowded market. That's the problem. So, there's the old saying, all leads work if you do. And yeah, that's true to an extent if you have unlimited time. I'm sure you can close some people, but my question is, what type of lead type can I work within the amount of time that I work, where I can close a good percentage to make the amount of money I need to make, if that makes sense. So for me, it's, I've been trying to keep costs down low and just do kind of a high volume outbound Facebook generated strategy over the past year. It works. You go through weeks where nothing happens, where you just feel like nothing, like this is not going to work out, and then things get hot again. So that's tough part, ups and downs. That's what we're talking about. So there's no, it's a deceptive question here. There's no real answer to it. So for me, I'm using a Sharp campaign right now. I used TTC, that was hot. I was running both at the same time. Then I wanted to stop paying a both management fee for both, and wanted Sharp kind of is able to turn them off and on a little bit easier, which I like, not on the weekends, because I was running my own leads, and I had to keep them running through the weekends, and it just adds stress when you can't get to them, and ends up being wasted money sometimes. So ultimately, and this is kind of summary on everything, nobody ever really knows what they're doing with 100% certainty. The minute you think you have something figured out, something changes. So this presentation, if you're watching it recorded months later, it could be outdated because things change, carriers change, lead generation changes. Because if something is working, of course, everybody flocks to it, and then it becomes saturated, and then you got to make changes, and so that's just the nature of it. So anyway, that's kind of the thoughts there.